Okay, so today we're going to talk about kind of a buzzword that I hear all the time, which is X-frame. And I only know a little bit about them, but I'm really curious what other people know. This is the frame for the 1960 El Camino. It originally came like this. There have been some modifications. Of course, the color is much different. My dad has reinforced quite a few things about it. And then, I mean, in terms of setup and things that are happening right now, we've done a disc brake conversion on it. But one thing that people always talk about is X-frames. And I've heard about them. I know kind of what they are, but I'm real curious to hear what other people know about them. What's really notable, I guess, in my opinion, is I think that they were introduced in 1958. I could be wrong about all this, by the way. I think they were introduced in 1958 and used until about 1964. And they're called an X-frame because, of course, they have that notable X through the center of them. I think that they were used in Bel Airs, Biscaynes, Impalas, Nomads, El Caminos. I actually think at El Caminos they were only used in 59 and 60. Again, I could be wrong about that. And they weren't offered on Chevelles or Novas, which is kind of interesting. So it was particular to those cars. I'm sure that they were used because they were lighter than a fully supported frame, or I guess they would call that like a box frame, right? Not to mention lower floor height. It probably gave a lot more sleeker roof lines, which is super attractive. But the other thing too is that they had a stronger center section. So I think that people really love talking about them because they were only offered for a few years. I can imagine though, one thing that's really interesting is you hear some bad things about them, and part of that is that, you know, they don't have any side protection. I don't know much about what a rear end on an X-frame is supposed to look like. I did a little painting today, so that's all masked off, but there's been some modifications to this rear end in general. It's my understanding that this bar right here was not here, and there is another bar right here that was not here previously. In terms of trailing arms, there is now, this is a 4-link rear end or support, and I guess it would have been a 3-link previously. I'm not quite sure what my dad has done that's different on this because I don't have another one to compare it to him. My dad did the modification based off what he wanted previous to him dying. But in 1989 was the last time that my dad drove this car, and he broke a rear axle. So I can imagine that kicked off once he got back to the barn. He started disassembling, and it probably kicked off a pretty decent idea session of how to reinforce the rear end. So I'd love to hear some thoughts on what is an X-frame. What else don't I know about this? Because it's the number one thing that people say. And what's so funny, I'll just pan over here, is I get people that come in here and ask all the time, oh, that's an X-frame. This is for the 57 Corvette. Oh, that's an X-frame. And it's not, because it has the sides on it. It's just the center is an X, but I actually don't know if this was modified either. Anyways, I'd love to hear some facts about an X-frame. Tell me what you know.